I've been a nurse in the intensive care unit for a while now. Night shifts have become my routine. The beeping of machines and the harsh fluorescent lights are familiar. But a few weeks ago, everything changed. That night left me with questions that still haunt me. I remember walking through the quiet corridor when I stopped at a patient room. I glanced inside and saw the name on the chart didn't match the name above the bed. Confused, I thought it was a clerical error. No big deal, I thought. I decided to check later. When I got to the admissions desk, I brought it up. The clerk's face went pale. "That patient was discharged months ago," she said. I felt a chill run through me. Maybe I misread? Shaking off the unease, I went back to my rounds. Most of the night went by like any other, but something felt strange. A few nights later, during my break, I noticed dark stains on the floor in the break room. At first, I thought they were nothing, but as I leaned in closer, my stomach dropped. They looked like dried blood. I glanced around, but there was no sign of a missing patient. I wanted to scream for someone to clean it, but I didn't. I just left, trying to shake it off. Later that night, I started hearing whispers echoing through the empty halls. I paused, straining to catch a name. It slipped through my fingers, but I was sure I heard something. When I told my coworkers, they just laughed it off, saying it was probably just the wind. I could feel the hairs on my neck stand up. I wished so badly that they would take me seriously. A few shifts later, while I was checking on my patients, I heard the machines buzzing and flickering in a room that was unoccupied. I rushed toward the sound, my heart racing. It felt like they were trying to communicate, but what were they saying? I pressed my face against a small glass window. The room was empty, but the noise continued. I turned to tell my coworkers, but they shrugged and joked about me needing more coffee. I wanted to yell that something was wrong, but my fear held me back. The odd incidents continued. The bloodstains disappeared without a trace, and the whispers vanished as well. I brought them up again, but my colleagues acted like they couldn't remember anything. I felt like I was losing my mind. One night, during a quiet moment, I turned around and saw a figure standing at the end of the hallway. It was just standing there, watching. I blinked, and it was gone. Now I don't know what to make of it. There was a heavy stillness in the air, an unease that wouldn't leave me. Was I imagining things? Was the hospital hiding something? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Something wasn't right. I still think back to that figure, and it sends chills down my spine. I wish I could explain what happened that night, but I can't. I'm left with more questions than answers, and I can't stop wondering what really lurked in those darkened halls. As the nights went on, the unease grew thicker. I tried to ignore it, focusing instead on my patients and their needs. But the shadows in the corners seemed to stretch longer, as if they were alive. One night, I decided to stay late in the break room after my shift, hoping to regroup my thoughts. The lights flickered above me as I sipped a lukewarm cup of coffee. I kept replaying the events in my mind, trying to find a logical explanation for everything. That's when I heard it again, the whispers. This time they were louder. My breath caught in my throat. I recognized the tone. It was pleading. I set my cup down and walked toward the hallway, my heart racing. The whispers seemed to beckon me. I followed the sound, moving cautiously, half expecting someone to jump out and scare me. But as I rounded the corner, I found myself standing in front of the same patient room where I first experienced the mismatched names. The door was slightly ajar, and I hesitated. In a moment of sheer determination, I pushed it open. The room was dark, but the faint glow of the monitors illuminated the bed. It was empty. No sheets, no IV, nothing. Panic rose in my chest. I stepped inside, my shoes silent against the tiles. I felt an odd chill sweep over me, and goosebumps prickled my skin. What was happening? Then I saw it, a piece of paper hanging off the edge of the bed. I reached for it, heart pounding. Just then, a loud bang echoed down the hallway. I jumped back, nearly dropping the note. My instinct screamed at me to run, but I forced myself to stay. I unfolded the paper. It was an old medical chart, yellowed and frayed. I could barely make out the name at the top, a patient who had been missing for months. I couldn't believe my eyes. Just then, the whispers rose again, clearer than before. "Help me," they echoed around me. I felt a sharp pang of dread. It hadn't just been some strange coincidence. Was this patient still here, somehow trapped in this limbo? My mind raced with the implications. I bolted from the room, clutching the chart tightly. But when I reached the nurse's station, no one seemed to notice my frantic expression. I searched for my coworkers, but the place felt uncharacteristically empty. I glanced at the clock. It was nearly 3 in the morning. Had the night staff already gone? I shivered, feeling the weight of those lingering whispers. Something was very wrong. That's when I noticed it. The same blood stain I thought I had seen weeks earlier was back, seeping through the cracks in the floor tiles. I took a step back, terror filling me. My mind screamed that I should leave, but curiosity held me in place. I could feel someone's eyes on me. They were watching, waiting. Then, without warning, the lights flickered and went out. I was plunged into darkness. My heart raced as I struggled to catch my breath. The whispers escalated, now a cacophony of voices, each begging for something. I felt a presence behind me, cold and heavy. Someone, or something, was not alone in this hospital. I knew I had to find out what was happening. I couldn't walk away now. But as I stood there, trembling in the dark, I realized I was far from safe. The silence was oppressive. I stood frozen in the dark, clutching the chart like a lifeline. The whispers enveloped me, each one a piercing echo of despair. I took a deep breath and tried to force my legs to move, but every bit of instinct told me to stay put, lest I provoke whatever lingered in the shadows. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, bathing the hallway in a harsh fluorescent glow. I blinked, disoriented. The whispers faded, leaving a haunting silence. It felt like an omen. My heart still raced, but clarity began to creep back in. I needed answers. I needed to know about the patient whose chart I had found. With shaking hands, I looked at the name again. It belonged to a woman, someone I faintly remembered from my training. Reports had circulated during my first year about mysterious circumstances surrounding her disappearance. Strange glances and hushed conversations had followed her case. I had never connected it to what was happening now. After a moment of hesitation, I made my way toward the staff library. Information about past patients and incidents was cataloged there. I needed to dig deeper into her case, but the prospect terrified me. The hallway felt longer and more sinister than ever, shadows lurking just beyond the edges of my vision. When I reached the library, I was relieved to find the lights on and the room intact. I flicked on the computer and hurriedly brought up the patient files. My hands trembled as I navigated through the outdated interface. The clock ticked steadily behind me, but all I could hear was the rush of my own heartbeat. I finally found her file. Her name was Emily Redford. The notes indicated she had been in and out of the hospital for years with no solid diagnosis. The last entry told of a severe episode that led to her disappearance, not just from the hospital, but from all records. It was as if she had simply vanished. I sat back, reeling. Why had I not heard this before? How could the hospital just forget someone? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from somewhere down the hallway, jolting me back to reality. I jumped from my seat, heart thundering in my chest. I wasn't alone. Panic surged through me as I recognized the sound of something heavy falling, maybe a gurney. My instinct screamed for me to run, but I steeled myself. I peeked out of the library door. The hallway remained eerily still. Clenching my fists, I moved cautiously toward the sound, each step heavy with dread. As I reached the broken doorway to an empty nurse's station, I caught a glimpse of something moving out of the corner of my eye. That's when I saw it. A figure standing at the far end of the corridor, half shrouded in darkness. It turned and seemed to look right at me, a pleading expression etched on its face. My breath caught again as the whispers returned, unearthing the dark realization I had been avoiding. "Help," it mouthed, echoing the desperate plea I had heard before. I froze, paralyzed by the weight of its gaze. Whatever this was, it wasn't just part of my imagination, not anymore. I needed to make a choice. Was I going to confront whatever this was, or would I run? But as I took a step forward, the lights began to flicker once more, and that one word rang in my ears: help. I needed to act fast. I took a deep breath, pushing aside my fear. I had come too far to run now. The figure at the end of the corridor was no longer just a shadow. It was a plea for help, and I couldn't ignore it. With a determined step, I moved closer, the whispers chiming in my mind like a warped melody. As I approached, the air grew colder. The figure shimmered at the edge of the light as I drew near, and I could see it was a woman, her hair cascading like a dark waterfall around her haggard face. I recognized her instantly. It was Emily Redford. "Emily," I whispered, not sure if she could hear me. Her eyes widened, filled with a mix of hope and desperation. But as soon as I uttered her name, she started to retreat into the darkness. I stumbled forward, caught off guard. "Wait, I want to help you." The moment I reached the spot where she had stood, a cold wind blew through the hollow corridor, nearly knocking me down. My heart raced as I steadied myself. I looked back, but Emily was gone. In her place hung a chilling silence. The whispers had quieted, but they hung in the air like smoke, just out of reach. I scanned my surroundings, both terrified and exhilarated. Whatever had happened here, whatever was happening, I had to uncover it. I turned back toward the nurse's station, noticing a folder lying on the floor where I had seen Emily. Trembling, I picked it up. It was another set of patient files, distinctly marked with Emily's name. They were different from the first, entries jotted down in frantic handwriting, the ink smudged in places. The first page sent chills down my spine. It spoke of hallucinations, episodes of time loss, and something darker lurking within her mind. "Help me, Emily." "I will," I murmured, but doubt washed over me. I couldn't make sense of the jumbled words before me. Before I could study them further, distant voices echoed through the hallway. I froze, pressing my back against the wall, straining to catch the conversation. "No one can know," a man's voice hissed, sending a shiver down my spine. "She can't come back." With my heart racing, I realized I had to act or get caught. I tucked the folder under my arm and darted back to the library, adrenaline kicking in. I couldn't breathe. The pulse of urgency thrummed in my ears. Just as I reached the door, a loud crash erupted from the nurse's station behind me. I turned instinctively, the folder clutched tightly. As dust settled, I caught sight of a shadow moving across the floor. It wasn't just Emily that I had to worry about anymore. Someone else was here. Someone who wanted to keep the past buried. I couldn't stay much longer. It was time to find a way out. But would they let me go? The whispers grew louder again, screaming secrets I wasn't ready to hear. I slipped into the library, and as I shut the door behind me, I realized I was not safe yet. I glanced at the computer screen, the cursor blinking, waiting for me to choose my next move. I had to find out the truth about Emily Redford. There was no going back now. This was only the beginning. I couldn't shake off the adrenaline that coursed through me as I stood in the dim library, heart hammering in my chest. The screen flickered, and I knew I had to do something quickly. I felt like a mouse trapped in a lab, the shadow of the cat ever closer. Should I search for more information about Emily, or should I find a way out? My fingers danced over the keyboard, my instincts screaming at me to hurry. I opened the first patient file from the worn folder tucked under my arm. The words darted across the screen, chaotic and filled with confusion. Hallucinations worsening, one entry read. Below it, another line. Tendrils of darkness whispering truths. I swallowed hard. What truths? I couldn't imagine what that might mean, but I could feel it in my gut. Something wicked was buried deep in this place. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the hallway, jolting me from my thoughts. My blood ran cold. I had no idea how much time I had left before whoever or whatever was lurking would discover me here. I scrolled through the entries, looking for anything specific. Then I saw it. A note scribbled at the bottom of one of the pages caught my eye. She is waking up. Don't let her return. Panic shot through me. Who were they talking about? Was it Emily? My mind raced. Did they think she was dangerous, or did they fear her? Another crash sounded, this time closer. I clamped my hand over my mouth, desperately trying to suppress the rising tide of panic. I had to get out of here. With shaky hands, I saved the files onto a flash drive I had brought along. I had to keep this information safe. It was my only leverage. Just then, the door at the far end of the library swung open, and I jumped back, my breath hitching in my throat. A figure stepped over the threshold, their silhouette cutting a stark shape against the dim light. It was a man. His expression was cold, unreadable, but there was something predatory in the way he scanned the room. My instincts screamed at me that I was in deep trouble. I barely managed to hide the flash drive in my pocket when the man took a step forward. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "This place doesn't welcome intruders." A flash of recognition shot through me. He was the man from the hallway, the one whose voice I had overheard. My heart raced. I couldn't let him know I had found anything. "I was just looking for some books. I thought this place was open to staff," I stammered, trying to sound casual even though my palms were slick with sweat. He narrowed his eyes. "You need to leave, now." In that moment, I saw movement in the corner of my vision. I turned quickly, revealing a second shadow lurking near the door, a woman with familiar dark hair. It was Emily. Her eyes locked onto mine, and for a fleeting second, I thought I saw a spark of recognition. Then she glanced nervously at the man, fear etched across her face. My heart dropped. I was losing my chance. As Emily began to back away into the shadows, I called out, "Wait, I can help you." But before she could respond, the man lunged toward me, a flash of anger on his features. I turned and ran, desperation driving me to the door. I had to get away from him, had to get closer to Emily. Just then, the lights flickered, another crash sounding behind me. My breath came in sharp bursts as I sprinted toward the exit. I didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was for sure. Things were spiraling out of control. I burst through the library doors, heart pounding. I had to find Emily. Whatever uncovering her past entailed, I was in now, deeper than I'd ever imagined. That man was a threat, and Emily, lost in her own nightmare, might be the only key to the truth. I stumbled out of the library, nearly colliding with the wall. The hallway was a shadowy tunnel, whispers of the past echoing back at me. I needed a plan. I had the flash drive with the files, but without Emily's connection, I was just running in circles. I turned into a side corridor, desperate for a place to hide and think. My mind raced. What did it mean that they were afraid of her waking up? Had she been in some sort of coma? Was she some kind of experiment? The fear of being chased still clung to me like a cold sweat. There was no time to waste. Crouching behind a row of lockers, I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. The flash drive felt like a brick in my pocket. I pulled it out, viewing the data I had salvaged. But more important than the files was finding Emily. I needed her to understand what was happening. Suddenly, footsteps echoed down the corridor, and my heart sank. It was the same man from the library. I pressed myself against the cool metal of the lockers, hardly daring to breathe. He spoke in a low voice to someone else I couldn't see, but the words sent ice through my veins. "Find her," he said. "We can't let her leave. If she knows, it's over." Who was he talking about? Was it Emily? I winced as I thought of her fear, how she had looked at me. I had to find her first. Once the footsteps faded, I cautiously peered out from my hiding spot. I had to get to the stairs. They would take me to the upper floors where I could search for Emily. I crept forward, each step careful, listening for any sign of danger. As I turned a corner, I saw it. A door slightly ajar at the end of the hall, dim lights spilling out. My heart raced with hope and dread. I walked closer. An empty room, but something caught my eye. A glint on the floor. I bent down and picked up a small silver locket. I opened it, and on one side was a portrait of a woman. I squinted at the familiar features. It was her, Emily. The other side was inscribed with a date, March 14, 2018. I felt a chill run down my spine. What did it mean? Before I could even process it, a loud crash resonated from behind me. I spun around, my pulse pounding. The man appeared again, but this time he wasn't alone. His companion, a woman with a stern expression, stood beside him. They had found me. "Stop right there!" the man shouted, pointing straight at me. I froze, the locket slipping from my fingers and bouncing away. I didn't think, I just ran. My heart raced as I sprinted toward the stairs, the sound of their footsteps pounding behind me. I had to get to Emily faster than they could reach me. I pushed through the door, my breath coming in harsh gasps. Each step felt heavier, but I couldn't look back. Then, everything went dark. The lights flickered off as I stumbled into the stairwell, leaving only the echo of my own panic in the stillness. I landed hard on the concrete steps of the stairwell, a sharp pain shooting through my knees. Darkness surrounded me, wrapping me in its thick embrace. I squinted, trying to make sense of the shadows. Panic clawed at me as I realized I couldn't hear anything. No footsteps, no scuffling, only a suffocating silence. I hesitated, nerves twisting in my gut. Maybe they had lost me. Slowly, I pushed myself off the ground, breathing raggedly. I reached for the railing to steady myself and moved carefully, feeling my way down the stairs. Each step felt like it took an eternity. Just as I approached the next landing, a flicker of light broke through the stillness. I froze again, scanning for its source. It shone from underneath a door halfway down the corridor. My instincts screamed at me to run, but curiosity tugged me forward. Could it be a way out? Or possibly a room where Emily was hiding? I edged closer, my heart thumping in my chest. The door creaked open slightly, revealing a small utility room. The light flickered on, revealing metal shelves stocked with supplies, bandages, syringes, and medical instruments. Broken equipment lay strewn across the floor. But that wasn't all. On a nearby table, I spotted an old photograph, yellowed with age. I swallowed hard as I picked it up. In the middle of a group of hospital staff, there she was, Emily, looking vibrant, standing beside a smiling doctor with a name tag that read, Dr. Morgan. It was dated the same day as the locket, March 14, 2018. "What is this?" I muttered under my breath. It made no sense. Why was she here in this photo? Was she connected to the hospital in a way I didn't understand? Before I could process more, I heard a noise from the stairs. Footsteps were growing close again. My body reacted instinctively. I shoved the photo into my pocket and ducked behind the door just as it swung open. The man and the woman stepped inside, their expressions fierce. "She has to be around here somewhere," the woman said, scanning the room. "Check the utility closet." I held my breath, praying they wouldn't look my way. This wasn't where I wanted to be cornered. The man's voice hissed. If she's connected to Emily, then we can't afford to let her escape. Their voices fell to a tense whisper, but I couldn't make out their words. I needed a way out. The only other door led to the back of the utility room, and I could feel my pulse throbbing in my ears. Then a realization hit me. I knew the data on the flash drive contained important information about Emily, and perhaps it was key to understanding what was happening. But first, I had to evade them. With my heart pounding, I slipped out the back door, figuring it was better to be invisible for now. The hallway beyond was dimly lit, but I could make out a staircase leading up. No more hiding. I needed. I had a feeling I was getting closer, but just as I turned to climb the stairs, a voice called out from behind me. "You think you can escape this time?" I spun around, eyes wide. The man was right there, blocking my path. The icy grip of fear returned. I couldn't let this end here, not when the truth was just within my grasp. I had to act fast. I bolted toward the opposite end of the hallway, leaving their shocked expressions behind. My mind raced. I had to find Emily before they caught me. Time was running out. I dashed down the hallway, my heart drumming in my ears. Each breath felt like a gasp against the thick, stale air. My legs moved faster than my mind, desperate to put distance between me and the pair pursuing me. The flickering lights overhead seemed to mock my urgency, casting erratic shadows on the walls. I spotted another door to my left. Without thinking, I yanked it open and slipped inside, praying it would buy me a moment to regroup. It turned out to be a storage room, filled with old medical equipment and dusty boxes. The smell of antiseptic hung heavy in the air. I hurriedly closed the door behind me, and the click of the latch sounded far too loud in the silence. I crouched behind a toppled gurney, straining to hear. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, searching for me. I held my breath, willing the noise to fade. Seconds felt like hours. Then, everything froze as I heard their voices again. "This way!" the woman shouted. She couldn't have gone far. My stomach twisted. It was a matter of seconds before they discovered I wasn't in the hallway. I peered through a gap in the gurney, hoping for a quick escape route. To my left, a window displayed an almost blinding sliver of light. It was slightly ajar, just enough for me to squeeze through if I acted quickly. Just as I started toward it, I spotted another photo on the ground, another snapshot like the one I'd seen before. My fingers shook as I picked it up. In it, a much younger Emily was standing next to a little girl, both of them laughing under the sun. I squinted at the date, March 14, 2010. 7 years before the other photo. "Did you hear that?" The voice snapped me back to reality. They were getting closer. I shoved the picture into my pocket, all thoughts of Emily suddenly eclipsed by the pounding urgency of escaping. I hurried to the window, heart racing. I pushed it up quietly, the frame creaking softly in the stillness. Taking a deep breath, I prepared to climb through. But before I could react, the door flew open behind me. The man stood there, breathless and furious. "You think you can run from us?" he growled, eyes narrowing as he caught sight of me. I didn't think. I jumped, flinging myself through the window and landing hard on the grass outside. It wasn't a graceful escape, but it was better than being caught. I rolled to my feet and bolted across the lawn, looking back just in time to see him yell for the woman to follow me. Adrenaline coursed through my veins. I needed to find cover. The hospital loomed behind me like a giant specter, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was racing into a trap. But Emily was still out there. I could feel it, a gnawing reminder that I had to keep searching for answers. That's when I saw it. An old van parked in the shadow of the building. It looked out of place, rusted and forgotten. Hope sparked inside me. If I could get to it, maybe I could use it to escape. Just as I darted toward the van, an engine roared to life. Panic flooded my senses. Someone was inside. I froze, unsure of my next move. I peered into the shadowed interior of the van, my heart hammering against my ribs. The sound of the engine echoed ominously, drowning out the frantic whispers of my mind contesting my next move. If I stayed out here, those two would catch up to me in seconds. But if I got inside that van, I might just find a way out. Suddenly, the sliding door creaked open, and a figure loomed in the doorway. A man, disheveled and wide-eyed, stared back at me, equal parts surprise and alarm on his face. "What are you doing?" he hissed, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "Please, can you help me?" I blurted, breathless. I didn't know if I could trust him, but I didn't have time to think. "They're coming after me." He hesitated for a moment, then nodded quickly, waving me inside. I jumped in without a second thought, slamming the door behind me. "Drive," I ordered, my voice shaking. "Just go." He didn't need telling twice. The van lurched forward, throwing me back against the seat. I turned to look at the man, who was now focused on the road ahead, knuckles white as they gripped the steering wheel. "What's going on?" he asked, glancing at me. "Why are they after you?" I hesitated, the weight of my situation crashing down on me. I don't know exactly," I stammered. "I'm looking for someone. Her name is Emily. I think she might be in danger." The stranger's expression changed, concern etched on his face. He seemed to be weighing my words closely. "Emily? I've heard that name before. You're not the first person who's been looking for her." My heart sank. "What do you mean? Who else?" Before he could answer, the headlights of another vehicle blazed to life behind us. I spotted a dark SUV pulling out of the hospital parking lot, and my stomach dropped. It was them. "Faster!" I screamed. "They're right behind us." He pressed down harder on the gas, the engine roaring as we hurtled down the deserted road. I couldn't shake the terror rising in my chest. I had no idea what was about to happen, but I felt the danger closing in. The SUV was gaining on us fast. "Who are they?" my driver shouted over the noise, panic creeping into his voice. I shook my head. "I don't know." My mind raced. "I just need to find Emily. Please, we have to lose them." The van swerved around a corner, tires screeching against the pavement. The SUV followed suit, menacingly close, its headlights illuminating the night like a predator stalking its prey. Then, out of nowhere, the van hit a bump, and something fell from the overhead compartment. An old file marked with the word "Confidential" in bold letters. It landed in my lap. I picked it up, praying for answers. The driver shot me a look, his eyes wide with anxiety. "What is it?" I opened the file, revealing a series of documents. My heart raced as I scanned a familiar name, Emily Carter, and beside it, disturbing notes about her and a series of incidents at the hospital. Before I could read further, the SUV drew even closer. "They're going to catch us!" I shouted. The tension thickened in the van. Then, just as I turned to look back, I saw a flash of light. A gunshot rang out, shattering the night. In the chaos of the moment, everything froze. I felt a rush of fear as the window behind us shattered, leaving me gasping for air. Then I looked at the driver, who had paled at the sound. "We need to get out of here," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, but suddenly the SUV swerved to block our path. My mind raced. I had to make a choice, and fast. But before I could find the words, the door of the van swung open again. I braced myself as the door flew open, a dark figure looming in the dim light outside. "Get out!" the woman shouted, her voice sharp and uncompromising. Panic surged within me, the urgency was palpable, and I caught a fleeting glimpse of the driver's face, fear mixed with confusion. I had no choice. Without thinking, I leapt from the van, sprinting into the night. My heart raced as I darted away from the swirling chaos, adrenaline propelling me in the opposite direction, deeper into the shadows. I didn't dare look back. If they were after me, I couldn't afford to be caught.
Around me, the night air was heavy with tension, the moon hidden behind clouds, shrouding my escape in darkness. I stumbled into a nearby wooded area, the trees wrapping around me like a protective barrier. I paused, needing a moment to regain my composure and assess my situation. My mind raced. Was the woman really looking to help me, or did they all belong to the same twisted web of secrecy? As I crouched low behind an
underbrush, I could hear them calling out to each other, their voices growing fainter as they searched the vicinity. I had a momentary thought of trying to find a phone or an ally, someone who could finally help shed light on Emily's plight. Instead, my focus drifted towards the folder I still clutched, the hidden revelations of Emily's suffering lingering at the forefront of my mind. I opened the file. My breath caught at the pages, filled with medical reports and notations about Emily's last known whereabouts. Subject entering a state of heightened consciousness, one entry read. Signs of distress increased in proximity to naturally occurring phenomena. I didn't understand what they meant by phenomena, but I tapped deeper into the documents. A chilling familiarity washed over me. The names of researchers involved were all connected to a dark history intertwined with the hospital. "What is this?" I muttered, trying to make sense of everything. I flipped through the pages, hands shaking. The more I read, the clearer it became that Emily's absence was connected to something larger, perhaps more sinister than I'd imagined. Suddenly, the crackle of leaves nearby startled me. I quickly shoved the folder into my jacket and held my breath, peering from my hiding place. Shadows danced along the tree line, and my heart raced again at the thought of being discovered. Then I heard a soft voice. "Is anyone out here?" It was a woman's voice, faint but desperate. I felt a surge of hope, but doubt flickered alongside it. I hesitated, but the timbre of the call echoed with familiarity. "Emily?" There was no response. My breath caught in my throat. Was it truly her, or was it another illusion conjured by the psychological nightmare I found myself in? I stepped out from behind the underbrush, ready to answer, but the forest loomed thickly, swallowing up my call. "Emily!" I shouted, the despair spilling into my words. Then, in a heartbeat, the shadows shifted again. I saw her, standing a few feet away, eyes wide with a mix of recognition and fear. "You shouldn't have followed me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Are you okay?" I asked, my own fear magnified as I scanned her frail figure. She looked worn, as if dragged from some dark corner of existence. "I can't stay here," she whispered frantically, glancing around as though anticipating danger. "You don't know the truth. They'll find us. You have to leave." "No," I replied, urgency flooding my voice. "I've been looking for you. I found the files. They're lying about you, about everything." Her eyes filled with recognition as she stepped closer. "You shouldn't have that. It's too dangerous," she warned, her voice trembling. But just then, the sharp crack of branches echoed behind us, and my heart sank. We were being hunted. "We need to go, now," I urged, taking her arm as I tugged her deeper into the woods, propelled by fear and a desperate need to uncover the truth. As we ran into the night, the world around us blurred into a haze of trees and shadows, unknown dangers lurking behind every branch. I still had questions buzzing in my head, but only one thought drove me forward, the desperate hope of uncovering what had happened to Emily and why they feared her so much. The whispers of the past still echoed in the air, leaving a haunting promise of revelations yet to come. But just as we neared the edge of the woods, a sudden flash of lights illuminated the trees, and the distant voices of our pursuers echoed through the darkness. We weren't free yet. "Keep running!" I shouted, adrenaline surging as we pressed forward, the urgency of survival overshadowing the mysteries waiting to be uncovered. In that moment, as we escaped into the unknown, the question loomed larger than ever. What truth lay ahead, just beyond our reach?